General Hospital recap for Thursday, June 5th, reveals that drunk Natalia Ramirez was arrested. Lucky Spencer decided he was leaving and Sasha Corbin's baby girl was born. At the Metro Court pool, Natalia sought Marco Rios' help since she wanted to mend fences with Blaze to Allison Rogers and join her on tour. Marco slammed Natalia over how she treated him in the past, and thought she'd made the same mistakes when his sister spoke her truth. Sonny Corinthos saw Natalia looking distraught and tried to give her a bit of a pep talk. However, Natalia guzzled plenty of booze and wound up calling Sidwell since he owed her. Natalia was visibly drunk when she left, so it wasn't long until a cop pulled her over and arrested her since she was way over the limit on the breathalyzer. As Natalia caused a scene on Thursday's GH episode, the officer insisted he was taking her in for driving while intoxicated and obstruction. Back with Marco, he shared drinks with Lucas Jones by the pool. Lucas reflected on some highs and lows with his own mother as he worked to give Lucas some advice about Natalia. At Curtis Ashford and Portia Robinson's house, they tried to bury their marriage issues for the day since they were hosting a family gathering. Marshall Ashford took a break from his tour to spend some time with the fam, so Trina Robinson had a chance to introduce him to Kai Taylor. There was some talk about Kai hopefully playing football again as he praised Drew Kane for his help. Curtis and Marshall later had a private discussion about Kai's risky faith in Drew. In a moment alone, Portia and Curtis bickered over their marriage issues. Curtis suggested they couldn't figure things out until he found Jacinda, who he'd pay to say Drew hired her for passion, and that he took the ketamine on purpose. Around the corner, Kai looked uneasy since he overheard what Curtis was plotting. Back with Sonny, he had a meeting with Maxie Jones. Maxie made it clear that deception needed Sidwell, so they were putting their misgivings aside until they had a reason not to. Over with Anna Devane, she gave Jason Morgan updates on her suspicions about Professor Henry Hank Dalton's illegal activities. Jack Brennan's attempt to downplay things only made Anna more convinced that there were discoveries to be made since the WSB was obviously interested in Dalton. Now that Jocelyn Jacks could get tangled up in trouble as Dalton's research assistant, Anna got Jason to agree he'd look into the professor for her. In his office, Brennan received Sidwell-related info from Jocelyn, since he was sponsoring Professor Dalton's research. Brennan also alerted Jocelyn to his Anna concerns, but he warned her not to run interference and insisted she should act surprised if Anna came around with questions. At the courthouse, Rick Lansing tried to highlight how Michael Corinthos committed adultery first, and even questioned Sasha about how much Michael paid her to keep quiet. Sasha insisted Michael didn't give her a dime and rushed to his defense. After Sasha went into labor on the stand, the judge adjourned due to the medical emergency. The paramedics couldn't get there in time, so Willow delivered Sasha's baby on the courtroom floor, while Michael reassured the mom-to-be and held her hand. Willow was kind and supportive to Sasha during the delivery, which ultimately resulted in the birth of Sasha's seemingly healthy baby girl. Michael had tears in his eyes as he met his child along with Sasha, so Willow noticed the close moments between them. Since Willow really stepped up, Michael thanked her when it was all over. Outside the courtroom, Carly found Nina Reeves confronting Rick over how he'd handled things with Sasha. Once Carly realized Nina told Rick about the true paternity, she flew into a rage. Drew tried to blame Carly for the custody drama, but she threw blame back in his face and pointed out that Nina made a move against him too. Carly knew for a fact that Nina hired Jacinda and had Drew drugged, so she exposed that shocker and left Nina looking nervous. In the park, Elizabeth Baldwin explained her proposal rejection, since she didn't think Lucky would be happy living a quiet life in Port Charles. Lucky ultimately saw her point and suggested they could travel the world as a couple, but Liz was wary of uprooting Aiden Weber. Even after Aiden went to college, Elizabeth didn't want to leave her own life behind. Lucky understood and hinted about leaving soon since it was too painful to be around Elizabeth when they couldn't be together. There were some concerns about how to break the news of Lucky's departure to Aiden, but Liz had an idea. General Hospital spoilers say Elizabeth will find a way to soften the blow, so stay tuned. Life in the small tight-knit community was never dull, but the recent whirlwind of events had left everyone reeling. Sasha's baby girl had finally arrived, bringing joy, exhaustion, and a new chapter to her life. But as one story of new beginnings unfolded, another spiraled into chaos. Natalia's arrest for public intoxication sent shockwaves through their circle, raising questions about her stability and future. And then there was Lucky, the ever-reliable friend, whose sudden decision to leave town left everyone wondering what had driven him away, and what it meant for those left behind. 3 separate yet interconnected dramas, each carrying its own weight, shaping the lives of those involved in ways no one could have predicted. Sasha'S journey to motherhood had been anything but easy. From the moment she discovered her pregnancy, she faced judgment, uncertainty, and the daunting reality of raising a child, possibly alone. The identity of the father had been a topic of hushed gossip, but Sasha had remained fiercely protective of her privacy, focusing instead on preparing for her daughter's arrival. When the day finally came, the pain, the fear, and the overwhelming love that flooded her as she held her baby for the first time made every struggle worth it. The tiny fingers grasping hers, the first cries, the quiet moments in the hospital room where it was just the 2 of them. Sasha knew her life had irrevocably changed. But while she was consumed with the beautiful chaos of newborn life, the outside world didn't pause. Natalia, once a close friend, had been spiraling for months. Her drinking, once social, had become a crutch, and her reckless behavior had alienated many. The night of Sasha's delivery, Natalia had been out at a bar, drowning her sorrows in alcohol, until she became belligerent. A confrontation with another patron escalated, and by the time the police arrived, Natalia was too drunk to reason with. Her arrest was humiliating, a public spectacle that left her family ashamed and her friends torn between sympathy and frustration. Some whispered that she needed help, while others had simply run out of patience. The real question was, what would this mean for her now? A night in jail, a court date, fines, or worse? And would she finally acknowledge she had a problem? Or would this be just another rock bottom before an even deeper fall? Meanwhile, Lucky, the steady, dependable presence in their group, had dropped a bombshell. He was leaving town. No grand farewell, no lengthy explanation, just a quiet decision that left everyone stunned. Lucky had always been the one to mediate conflicts, offer support, and keep the peace. His absence would leave a void, and the reasons behind his departure were the subject of rampant speculation. Had Natalia's drama driven him away? Was he running from something, or towards something? Some wondered if he had secrets of his own, a life beyond what they knew. Others worried that his exit signaled the end of an era, the unraveling of the friendships that had once seemed unbreakable. The timing of these events felt almost cruel. Sasha, in her most vulnerable state, needed her support system more than ever. Yet here she was, navigating motherhood while one friend was in legal trouble, and another was disappearing without a trace. Would Natalia's arrest force her to confront her demons, or would it push her further into self-destruction? And without Lucky's calming influence, how would the group dynamic shift? The balance they had all relied on was tipping, and no one knew what came next. Then there were the ripple effects, the families, the partners, the bystanders pulled into the drama. Natalia's parents were devastated, torn between enabling her and cutting her off. Sasha's family, while overjoyed by the baby, worried about her facing parenthood amid so much instability. And Lucky's sudden exit left unanswered questions for those who had depended on him. Had anyone truly known him, or had he been playing a role all along? The baby, oblivious to the chaos, became a symbol of hope and a stark reminder of responsibility. Sasha's determination to give her daughter a better life was unwavering, but the challenges ahead were daunting. Would she have to distance herself from Natalia for the sake of her child? Would Lucky's departure mean losing touch with others in the group? The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: life would never be the same. In the end, these 3 events, birth, downfall, and farewell, were intertwined in ways no one could have foreseen. Each moment carried its own lessons, its own pain, and its own potential for redemption. As the dust settled, the question remained: would these trials break them or force them to grow in ways they never imagined? Only time would tell. Today's episode starts with Anna Devane, who has filled Jason Morgan in on her suspicions about Professor Dalton, and he agrees to get all the information that he can on him. As the conversation is wrapping up, Aiden Turner comes out from the shadows and accuses them of something sinister. Jason leaves, and she continues to scold Anna for setting a bad example. Turner makes it very clear that she is going to run for district attorney, and she has every intention of running Sonny Corinthos out of town. After Anna leaves, Turner gets a call about Natalia Ramirez being in custody. Jen Sidwell and Jordan Ashford are talking business and about how Jens is funding Professor Dalton's important research, when his son Marco Rios arrives. Jordan leaves and Marco suggests that he have a plan B for Measure C. Marco points out that if Sonny is willing to make a deal with him and sell him the peers, he still has a problem. If Measure C passes, then they will still confiscate them from him. Whoever owns them would then lose them. Sidwell feels confident that Measure C won't pass if Sonny willingly gives up the peers, and continues to hold his ground. While they talk, Natalia calls Marco and he lets it go to voicemail. She leaves a message telling him that she's at PCPD and needs his help. Sidwell reminds Marco that if he ever wants to get into the family business, he can be his right-hand man. Natalia sobers up and realizes she's in trouble. Natalia is in an interrogation room at the PCPD, making demands despite blowing a .12 on the breathalyzer. When Molly Lansing Davis comes in and sits down, Molly has been handed her DUI case, but once she realizes that she has a personal conflict with Natalia, she leaves. Natalia finally gets her phone call and leaves a message for her son Marco. While waiting, ADA Turner comes in and wants to ask her some questions about Sonny. General Hospital recap June 6th. Michael and Sasha introduce Daisy and Drew simmers with rage after leaving Sidwell. Jordan heads over to Curtis Ashford's in the hopes of seeing Marshall Ashford since he is in town. Curtis has just finished filling in Marshall on some of the problems in his marriage to Portia Robinson, and now he brings Jordan up to speed. She listens and tells Curtis that she doesn't believe that Portia intended to lie to him. She suggests that for once, he not rush to judgment, and instead look for ways to repair it. Curtis says that he knows he can't make any decisions until he is sure that Portis is safe from Drew Kane. General Hospital recap June 6th. Michael and Sasha introduce Daisy and Drew simmers with rage. Nina Reeves is relieved to find out that Willow Corinthos hasn't returned to the home that she shares with Drew yet. He tells her that the minute she gets home, she will find out that it was her mother who drugged him, and their relationship will be over. Nina tells Drew that if he tells Willow that, then she will tell Willow that they were sleeping together for a year, and then Willow will have nothing to do with either of them. Drew tells Nina that nothing is going to make him lose Willow, and once she has custody of the kids, they will be moving to DC to start a whole new life. Nina realizes that no matter what she does, she can't save Willow. Sasha Corbin and Michael Corinthos' daughter was born early, but she is healthy. They introduce Daisy to Sonny before anyone else. Michael then talks privately with Sonny about the firebombing and the high price that he has paid to be his son. He says that he has no regrets and loves his father. As they talk, Cody Bell stops by and is thrilled to see Sasha so happy. He also jokes about needing to apologize to Jason. After Cody leaves, he takes a seat at the Metro Court pool after hours, and is joined by Molly. They share a fun conversation, and he tells her that seeing Sasha earlier made him realize that sometimes unexpected things happen that turn out to be great. Carly Spencer is also thrilled to visit Sasha and baby Daisy. Sasha starts to explain keeping the paternity from her, but Carly stops her and tells her that she understands. She knows that everything that she did was to protect Michael. Jason is also introduced to the baby and agrees to be Daisy's godfather. Nina decides to be honest with Sasha while visiting, and she tells her that she is the one who tipped Rick Lansing off to Michael being the father. She explains that she had to protect Willow, but feels so bad about the effect that it had on Sasha, who tells her that she is too tired to be angry or hold a grudge. Michael and Willow ran into each other at an elevator in General Hospital, and he told her that he was going home to get their kids so that they could meet their new sister. A little while later, both Willow and Michael are holding the kids up to the window outside of Sasha's room, so that they can wave to her and Daisy. The moment Michael and Sasha introduced Daisy and Drew to their family and friends, the air thickened with unspoken tension. What should have been a joyous occasion, a celebration of new life of blended families of love and unity, instead simmered with barely contained rage. The smiles were forced, the congratulations hollow, and the undercurrent of hostility was impossible to ignore. Everyone in the room could feel it, though few dared to acknowledge it outright. This was not the happy introduction of two children to a welcoming circle. This was the unveiling of a powder keg, one that had been quietly building pressure for months if not years. For Michael and Sasha, the decision to bring Daisy and Drew into the same space was not made lightly. There was history here, messy, complicated, and unresolved. Perhaps once they had imagined a different life, one where their families merged seamlessly, where past grievances were forgiven, and where the children could grow up without the weight of adult conflicts. But reality was far from that ideal. The reasons for the simmering rage varied depending on who was asked. For some, it was the lingering resentment of broken promises. For others, it was the raw, unhealed wounds of betrayal. And for a select few, it was the simple, burning injustice of being forced to play nice when every instinct screamed for confrontation. Daisy, bright-eyed and unaware of the storm swirling around her, clung to Michael's hand, her small fingers wrapped trustingly around his. She was too young to understand why the room felt so heavy, why the adults spoke in clipped tones, why the laughter didn't reach their eyes. Drew, older and more perceptive, stood close to Sasha, his gaze flickering between faces, sensing the hostility but not yet grasping its roots. These children were innocent bystanders in a war they didn't start, yet their presence was the very thing that had brought the conflict to the surface. The tension between Michael and Sasha was palpable. Once they had been partners, lovers, even bound by something deeper than friendship. But time and circumstance had eroded that bond, leaving behind jagged edges that cut whenever they got too close. Introducing Daisy and Drew was supposed to be a step toward healing, a way to show that they could put their differences aside for the sake of the children. Instead, it only highlighted how far apart they truly were. Every glance between them was loaded, every word carefully measured to avoid setting off an explosion. The rage wasn't just between them either. It extended outward, pulling in parents, siblings, and friends who had long since chosen sides. Michael's family had never fully accepted Sasha, viewing her as an outsider who disrupted the natural order of things. They tolerated her for his sake, but their smiles were thin, their embraces stiff. When they looked at Daisy, they saw her mother's features, a constant reminder of the woman they blamed for Michael's struggles. Sasha's family, on the other hand, had never forgiven Michael for whatever transgressions they believed he had committed. To them, Drew was a casualty of Michael's failures, a boy who deserved better than a father who couldn't get his act together. The children, oblivious to these silent judgments, were caught in the crossfire of generational grudges. Then there were the exes, the former lovers and almost partners who lingered on the fringes of Michael and Sasha's lives, their presence like ghosts haunting the edges of the room. Some had moved on, content to watch from a distance. Others simmered with their own quiet fury, resentful of the way Michael and Sasha's lives had intertwined while theirs had been left behind. A few had even come tonight, their polite masks barely concealing the bitterness beneath. Every interaction was a minefield, every conversation a potential trigger for the rage that threatened to boil over. The worst part was the pretending. Everyone was pretending to be happy, pretending to be civil, pretending that this was a normal, joyful gathering. But beneath the surface, the anger was alive, pulsing like a second heartbeat. It was in the way Michael's jaw clenched when Sasha laughed a little too loudly at someone else's joke. It was in the way Sasha's fingers tightened around her glass when Michael absent-mindedly brushed a hand against another woman's arm. It was in the way Drew scowled at Daisy for no apparent reason, mimicking the unspoken hostility of the adults around him. By the time the evening ended, the rage hadn't erupted. Not fully, at least. There were no screaming matches, no overturned tables, no dramatic exits. Just a series of quiet goodbyes, stiff hugs, and promises to do this again soon, that no one really meant. But as the door closed behind the last guest, the silence that settled over Michael and Sasha was deafening. The children, exhausted from the tension they couldn't name, were finally asleep. Now there was nothing to distract from the truth. This had been a disaster. The question wasn't whether the rage would surface again. It would. The question was whether Michael and Sasha could contain it long enough to keep Daisy and Drew from getting burned. During the week of June 9th to 13th, General Hospital spoilers state that Jocelyn Jacks will be dealing with a problem, while Nina Reeves will be concerned about the possibility of losing Willow Corinthos forever. Therefore, let's talk about what's going to happen on General Hospital on ABC. Carly Spencer will also get romantic. As a first step, Carly will have to figure out who the real father of Sasha Corbin's child is in light of the recent commotion that has occurred in the courtroom. Carly will be left with conflicting emotions as a result of this, and Jason Morgan will be put in the hot seat. Part of Carly will appreciate what Jason tried to accomplish with the false baby daddy act, but another part of her should be outraged about him hiding secrets from her. Of course, the goal will be ensuring Sasha and the baby are okay after she goes into delivery. As a result of the sad death of her first child, Liam Corbin, Sasha will be filled with terror of the worst possible outcomes. There is a good probability that Sasha's second kid will survive and ultimately thrive, despite the fact that she will be concerned about the possibility of another early labor producing a disastrous outcome. It is possible that once Sasha and Michael Corinthos go through all of this together, Sasha will become more receptive to the idea of raising the child as co-parents or even as a couple. For now, Michael and Sasha will connect over their similar baby concerns. And they may wind up owing Willow their thanks for helping them amid all the labor turmoil. As for Nina, she will experience a state of terror after Carly reveals that she is the person responsible for Drew's drugging scheme. There will be a confrontation between Carly, Nina, Drew and Rick that leads to Carly ratting Nina out. It is possible that the mother-daughter connection that Nina has been working so hard to cultivate would be destroyed if Willow receives updates on that news and believes Carly. As things begin to spin out of control, Nina will continue to worry about the possibility of losing Willow for good. Drew will also have a dilemma on his hands now that he's framed Tracy Quartermaine for what Nina did with Portia Robinson and Jacinda's help. Curtis Ashford will expect to use that frame up against Drew. And he'll want to find Jacinda as part of his strategy to neutralize Drew too. Back with Carly, she'll make time for her romance with Jack Brennan someday. Brennan has a wonderful present headed his way, so Carly will try to show him just how much he means to her. Meanwhile, Marco Rios will confide in Lucas Jones, so he may hint about things getting problematic at work. Although Marco doesn't know much, he might leak enough to make Lucas concerned that Alexis Davis is in crisis mode. Work problems could become an issue for Jocelyn and Vaughn, as well since they'll strengthen their connection through their WSB employment. Vaughn and Jocelyn have a hard issue coming up, one that'll lead to a close moment between them. Despite Vaughn's vow to Brennan about dealing Anna Devane alone, Jocelyn may get tied up in his intentions. Once Anna and Jason Morgan band up to investigate Professor Henry Hank Dalton, Jocelyn may take action and risk secret agent exposure if she's not careful. General Hospital spoilers suggest the week of June 9th to 13th will offer some excitement, so don't miss all the mayhem that's ahead. Nina had always thought that time could heal anything, that if she simply waited long enough, if she showed enough kindness and regret, she could somehow piece together a bond with her kid. But reality was beginning to indicate otherwise. The harder Nina attempted to get close to Willow, the more strained everything became. Their interactions, once filled with cautious hope, had started to feel mechanical. Polite smiles, quick discussions, and uncomfortable silences that spoke more than words ever could. Nina was losing her daughter, and this time it felt final. Willow had given Nina a chance, maybe not out of trust, but certainly out of a wish for peace. After everything she'd been through with her illness, and the mayhem that had followed the SEC scandal, she didn't have the stamina for further emotional battle zones. She convinced herself she could let Nina in slowly, that forming a connection might be doable with enough care and time. But Nina, determined to prove herself, never completely comprehended the vulnerability of that opportunity. Her need to be involved, to intrude herself into every peaceful moment of Willow's existence, started to seem oppressive. And then there was the truth, hanging heavy in the air between them. Willow may have wanted a mother, but not at the cost of her sanity, or her family's tranquility. Nina's history with Carly, her betrayal of Drew and the SEC secret, and her relentless maneuvering were flaws in the foundation that could never truly be sealed. Willow noticed everything. Every time Nina tried to smooth things over with false affection or deliberate kindness, Willow would pull back just a little more. It wasn't out of cruelty. It was self-preservation. Nina could feel it. Every unanswered text. Every rescheduled coffee date. Every time Willow opted to go through something without calling her. Nina's terror grew more vivid with each passing day. She began to overcompensate, dropping by unannounced, offering aid where it wasn't wanted, pushing herself into regions Willow hadn't invited her into. She persuaded herself she was just being involved, being present. But everyone else noticed the desperation, especially Carly. General Hospital spoilers reveal that Rory Gibson has made quite a splash since his debut as a Michael Corinthos recast. Gibson had some big shoes to fill following Chad Duell's departure, but he's doing a wonderful job and earning plenty of fan support. Now that Gibson is settling into the role nicely, viewers are growing even more curious about what's ahead for his character. Michael has been dealing with plenty of drama thanks to the custody feud, especially since the paternity of Sasha Corbin's baby came out in court. In an interview with SOD, Gibson opened up about Michael's thoughts on this whole mess and where things could go from here. Part of Michael has been focused on trying to get his kids into a safer situation, but another part of him is fueled by a little bit of rage over Willow's actions. Since Drew is Michael's uncle and someone he previously trusted, Gibson suggested the double betrayal contributed to all the pain and fury. It's been tough for Gibson to play both the heartache and the anger, but he's been pulling it off beautifully. In addition to recast Michael's new look, we're seeing more layers to the character overall thanks to all the challenges he's dealt with and continues to deal with now. He's gone through so much, and I'm almost looking at the explosion as a rebirth type of situation, Gibson said. As for the moment when the paternity of Michael and Sasha's baby was exposed, Gibson addressed his character's mixed feelings. The timing was terrible since Michael was fighting for custody of Wiley Corinthos and Amelia Corinthos, but it was also a relief for the truth to finally be out in the open. Gibson pointed out that if it were up to Michael, the secret would have come out before now so that he could have been supporting Sasha throughout the pregnancy. Honestly, he'd probably be with Sasha, and he'd be wanting to raise this baby with her, Gibson added. That seems like a huge clue about where Michael and Sasha's storyline will ultimately go from here. Gibson acknowledged that Michael isn't ashamed of the baby's existence, though he knows Willow must feel like he's a hypocrite, since he came after her so hard while hiding his own betrayal. Nevertheless, the exposure of the paternity news means that Michael's free to support Sasha openly. Following Sasha's early labor and all the courtroom drama, Michael could rebuild his relationship with her if they can both get on the same page. General Hospital spoilers say Michael's new chapter will continue to bring some interesting shakeups, so stay tuned for updates on what's in store. General Hospital fans have been glued to their screens as the drama surrounding Michael Corinthos continues to unfold, and now Rory Gibson, who portrays Michael, is opening up in a way that adds even more fire to the already boiling speculation. With a new chapter clearly on the horizon for Michael, fans are left wondering what his future holds, not just in terms of family loyalty and business feuds, but also when it comes to love. Rory Gibson's words tease a rebirth for Michael, a chance at starting over, perhaps redefining everything we thought we knew about him. And the implications? They're big. They're messy. They could change everything. Michael Corinthos has never exactly had it easy. As a legacy character born into the complexities of mob life, and raised under the shadow of powerful men like Sonny Corinthos, his path was never going to be simple. Over the years we've seen him navigate heartbreaking loss, betrayals, romantic entanglements, and more than a few moments where he nearly gave in to the darker parts of his nature. But lately there's been a shift, a tension in the air, a building pressure around Michael's storyline that suggests he's standing on the edge of a transformation that could either liberate him or destroy him completely. She explains that she had to protect Willow, but feels so bad about the effect that it had on Sasha, who tells her that she is too tired to be angry or hold a grudge. Michael and Willow ran into each other at an elevator in General Hospital, and he told her that he was going home to get their kids so that they could meet their new sister. Sasha Corbin, Sophia Matson, and Michael Corinthos, Rory Gibson, daughter was born early, but she is healthy. They introduced Daisy to Sonny before anyone else. Michael then talks privately with Sonny about the firebombing and the high price that he has paid to be his son. He says that he has no regrets and loves his father. As they talk, Cody Bell, Josh Kelly, stops by and is thrilled to see Sasha so happy. He also jokes about needing to apologize to Jason. After Cody leaves, he takes a seat at the Metro Court pool after hours, and is joined by Molly. They share a fun conversation, and he tells her that seeing Sasha earlier made him realize that sometimes unexpected things happen that turn out to be great.